When you look into their eyes, you know somebody is home.
They're an animal that possesses great spiritual power, not to be meddled with.
Orange County Sheriff's Office.
We need SO to respond for a dead person at SeaWorld. A whale has eaten one of the trainers.
Tilikum is the one that went after her.
Dawn is the senior trainer here at Shamu Stadium.
She captured what it means to be a SeaWorld trainer, that it made me realize what happened to her really could have happened to anyone.
I've been expecting somebody to be killed by Tilikum.
We weren't told much about it, other than it was trainer error.
It didn't just happen. It's not a singular event. You have to go back to understand this.
The speedboat herded them in, and they could just pick out the young ones.
This is the worst thing that I've ever done.
When Tilikum arrived at SeaWorld,
He was twice as large as the next animal.
We stored these whales in what we call a module, which was 20 feet across and 30 feet deep, and the lights were all turned out.
Probably led to what I think is a psychosis.
All whales in captivity are all psychologically traumatized. It's not just Tilikum.
If you were in a bathtub for 25 years, don't you think you'd get a little psychotic?
Dawn would tell you that it was her mistake.
They blamed her.
It's just a bold-faced lie.
I was just instructed to get rid of the tape.
the industry has a vested interest in spinning these. That sells a lot of Shamu dolls. It sells a lot of tickets at the gate.
There's no record of an orca doing any harm in the wild.
Now we have your picture in our big cinema here. Okay, thanks for speaking, Samantha. We have seen the film Blackfish in the evening, and I hope there are some questions for you. You are a former trainer of SeaWorld. We have seen in this film you have so much learned and so much experience. The question was, do you know anything about orca hunting today?
Oh, yes. Actually, the Russians have just been in the process of capturing orcas, unfortunately. So when I started 3 years ago, when I started speaking out against captivity, there had not been any new captures. But recently, in the past year, the Russians have captured a total of, I think it's 7 or 8 orcas now, and 2 of them have now been moved to Sochi for the Olympics. So they're going to actually keep them on display during the Olympics, which is really, I mean, this captures on that level have not been done since the late 70s, early 80s. And then, of course, you guys may be familiar with Morgan, this story about Morgan the orca. Morgan was captured in the Netherlands. She was in the Wadden Sea, and she's actually from a pod of whales who is from, I believe it's from, actually Norway. And the Dolphin Hardwick captured her under a rehab and release permit. And once they had her there, they said that she was not releasable, and she was then moved to Laura Parque, which you saw in the movie. It's the Canary Islands, an autonomous region of Spain. So she's there now, and there was just a retrial to try to determine if they could keep her or if she was going to be rehabilitated and be able to go back into the ocean. Right now, Laura Parque is saying that Morgan is deaf, and that's one of the reasons she can't return to the ocean. But there's a big trial, and we're still waiting to hear what the verdict is going to be from that. But the big thing really is the Russian capture.
Now I give you another person for question, thanks.
Okay.
Hi, my name is Bianca. And Jürgen told you we've just seen the movie Blackfish before. So do you think there's a realistic chance that SeaWorld will shut down the orca shows now?
I think we have the best chance that we've ever had since SeaWorld opened, almost 50 years ago, that things could change. I don't know if you guys are aware, but SeaWorld had a concert series that was scheduled to happen, I believe, starting in February, and they had a lot of famous artists from the 80s and 90s who were lined up to play. And we have been, there's a group of people on Twitter and in social media, on Facebook and Tumblr, people all over the world who've seen the movie, who have been pressuring these artists to not perform at SeaWorld. So far, the band Bare Naked Ladies and Willie Nelson and Heart actually just canceled today. So we have 3 really well-known artists that have now said, based on what we've seen in the movie Blackfish, and based on how SeaWorld treats their animals, we're not going to perform at your park. I mean, so this is huge. We're actually reaching a level of cultural saturation that I would not have expected 3 years ago. So SeaWorld's starting to feel the pressure. Another thing that I recently heard was that they were, compared to the same period last year, SeaWorld was down in about 1 million visitors. Their stock price is going down, their ticket sales are going down, and they're getting an unprecedented amount of public pressure to stop the shows and figure out a way to, humanely either release the animals that are releasable or get the animals that aren't into some sort of a sea sanctuary situation. So I absolutely think that the orca shows will shut down.
We got a dolphin stadium here in the city.
Okay.
And although the pool is getting bigger, it's still colored concrete and plastic, so it's still not a natural.
Got it. Okay. Yeah. So that's one of the issues with captive dolphins. I mean, the big buzzword in the zoo industry, of course, is enrichment. Is trying to give the animals as much of a natural life as you can possibly give them. So you have natural, you have natural foliage, and you have places that animals can get out of the sun with shelter, and you have as large an area that you can give them. Unfortunately, with the dolphins and whales, I mean, it's so primitive. You're exactly right. It's just concrete and blue paint. In some cases, sometimes they have natural rock work, but they're really, no matter how much interaction the trainers give to these animals, you're talking about, in the case of killer whales, they swim 80 to 100 miles a day. Dolphins can swim 60 to 80 miles a day. So it's just that no matter how big you make the pool, you're never going to make it big enough. So then it's about how much interaction you can give these animals. Obviously, they're very social. You saw in the movie how their identity in some ways is really part of the pod. I don't believe that there's anything that you can do in a captive environment to make these animals have a more normal life, except you can stop forcing them to do shows, and you can take them away from the petting pool environment where people are constantly sticking their hands in the water and trying to feed them. Give them a place to get away from the public. That would be good. But ultimately, I really think that we have to move towards ocean sanctuaries where these animals have a lot more space, and then they can choose to interact if they want to, and they can choose not to interact. They can get away from people. I think one of the biggest issues is that most people don't realize is that the dolphins and whales are forced to perform for their food. They're forced to interact with people whether or not they want to because they're hungry all the time. And people say, oh, well, they get all their food no matter what by the end of the day, but they're giving their food in little bits and pieces throughout the day for doing shows or for interacting with people. With the Swim at the Dolphins programs, people are sometimes getting in the water every 15 minutes with them. So they're constantly in a state of hunger, and so people think, oh, they're interested in interacting with me, that's why they're coming over, but it's actually more like Stockholm Syndrome. They're prisoners, and they get everything from their trainers or from the people who are giving them food, so of course they go over because they're hungry, but if they had the choice, they wouldn't choose to interact with humans on that level, and that's pretty clear in the wild. There are situations where dolphins will come over and interact with people because they're interested, and then they go away. It's very rare there's been a few situations, in our lifetime where dolphins have chosen to really bond with humans, but usually it's because they don't have connection with their pod. In general, they're curious, they come over, they interact, and then they leave. They're not dependent on the humans, and in captivity, they're just completely dependent, and there's really, from everything I know about them in the wild, I don't think that any size pool is good enough for a dolphin or whale. We just have to get them out into ocean sanctuaries. Great question.
Okay.
Thank you.
I think this was the last question. We all say thank you for your answers. You're living in Alaska, I think so. It's much cold there, I think. Also in Germany. Thanks for your answers, Samantha, and thanks for your way. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much. Have a great day. Or
this is your applause. This is your applause from Germany.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.